My name is Chris Toplack, and this is the first standalone edition of A View from the Top, brought to you by my friends over at the Reaction Room Wrestling Podcast. If it's your first time hearing my voice, take off your shoes and stay a while. This show is all about news and rumors regarding the WWE. There's plenty of news to get to. Let's start big. Paige was suspended yet again. Deja vu. This time 60 days, because it is her second violation of the talent wellness policy. Now, shortly after this was announced, she wrote the following tweet. Same shit, different day. Kids, please don't get prescriptions or doctor's notes. Not acceptable. Now, her family adamantly defended her honor, which I'm sure she appreciated, but the WWE issued a statement to the New York Post claiming it was an illegal substance she tested positive for and not a prescription drug. So they clarified that. Does Paige even want to be in the WWE at this point? Feels as though she's more loyal to Alberto Del Rio, her boyfriend, than she is the company she works for. That's just my take on it. Becky Lynch injury update. If you're watching WWE No Mercy, you probably noticed that Becky Lynch was not there. She was forced to withdraw from her match against Alexa Bliss. Well, she will be out for the rest of the month. She's expected to return in November. Few details have been released in regards to her injury. Some have speculated it has to do with her neck, but it's been out there that this has nothing to do with a physical in-ring injury. So it's something else. Is Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar still set for Survivor Series? That was a question last week, and we got our answer just a couple of days ago on Raw. This still appears to be the tentative plan, and while Vince McMahon is not overly thrilled about it, Goldberg returns next week on Raw to address Paul Heyman's challenge. Now, I heard rumors that Vince is not overly thrilled about this just because it looks as though they're just promoting the video game WWE 2K17, cheap plug in stores now, which I actually purchased, and I'm playing tonight for the very first time. So hopefully I'll provide you with a review on the next edition of A View from the Top. Now, as for Brock Lesnar beyond Survivor Series, it's being rumored that he would face Shane McMahon at WrestleMania 33. They planted those seeds just after SummerSlam, where Brock Lesnar gave him an F5, and it was a big one too. The Reaction Room crew had a few items they wanted me to tackle for them. Let's start with the status of TNA Wrestling. There were heavy rumors that the WWE would purchase TNA Wrestling, and particularly the library, so they could actually add it to the WWE network and perhaps even introduce it under a tier format. I'll actually talk more about that on my other podcast, cheap plug, Ask the Top, which you can find over at christoplack.com. This means that subscribers would ultimately pay more money for this content and other independent content. So perhaps ROH, who knows? Now, WrestleZone reported that Dixie Carter actually met with TNA Wrestling talent and said she would never let the WWE buy the company. Do you believe it? Alberto Del Rio update for Chris and Nat. According to NoDQ.com, there are two versions of the story. One does not mention Paige's involvement, while the other does. Now, in the second version, Dave Meltzer mentioned that Paige was there, and while she tried to help Del Rio, basically, she was thrown down by the suspect. Now, while Del Rio was checking on Paige, the suspect fled on foot and escaped. One source claimed it was a homeless man, but it is still unconfirmed. Now, here's where things get a little bit more bizarre. Del Rio claims that he wasn't able to contact AAA Wrestling. That was due to a lack of a phone. But does that mean that Paige did not have one on her as well? Because even if this were true, the incident supposedly occurred on a Sunday, and AAA was not contacted until the next day. So he waited a full day to contact them to basically say, hey, I got stabbed, can't make the show. Sorry. Now, actually, more Alberto Del Rio news. He was actually appointed as president of Combate Americas, which is an MMA promotion. So he is El Presidente. And tune into that one, hopefully, very shortly. Brie Bella is expecting, that's right, Brie Bella and Daniel Bryan, a.k.a. Bryan Danielson, will become parents in 2017. This was revealed exclusively to E! News that they're expecting their first child, and they couldn't be more excited. but will Daniel Bryan be sticking around as SmackDown GM? That seems to be the plan, at least for now. Once they have the child, who knows for sure, but he does have a couple of years left on his current contract. Beef between Bret Hart and the Freebirds, Michael Hayes. In an interview with Forbes.com, Bret Hart actually fired some shots at the Fabulous Freebirds. Basically, it had to do with the fact that he felt that they should have not been inducted over Rick Rude, Owen Hart, and Demolition. Here's the quote. Why have they been overlooked when you could induct the Freebirds, who never did squat in WWE, ever? Never drew any money, never did anything. When I remember the Freebirds, they were all drunk and passed out at the gate at one of the airports in my first day in WWF. None of them even made the show that day. They were too drunk to make their plane. Now, Michael Hayes responded to this on Twitter with the following tweets. Just read something where Bret put the birds down. Say what you want about me. When you talk about Terry and Buddy who aren't here, problem. It is really sad when a legend who's so blessed with a great career resorts to crapping on others. You'd never say that to Terry or Bud's face. Ooh, tension backstage when they meet again. A Chris Benoit biopic. Heard about this one for years. It could actually be transpiring. As expected, though, the WWE is not on board with a Chris Benoit biopic. Can you blame them? It's easily the lowest point in the history of the company. Now, this potential biopic will be based on the book Ring of Hell, the story of Chris Benoit in the fall of the pro wrestling industry. I guess that would be why they're not high on this biopic. Michael C. Hall, who actually played Dexter, is already a forerunner for the role of Chris Benoit. Now, here's my question to you. You can let me know on Twitter at Chris Toplack. Would you watch this movie? I'd have to wait for reviews, but I'm already leaning towards no. Could the Cruiserweight Classic become a weekly show? Well, according to Dave Meltzer, he reported on the Wrestling Observer Radio that it actually could be a possibility. It could actually be a weekly program on the WWE Network. A weekly Cruiserweight Classic series was actually listed in a recent survey that actually went out to fans asking about the 4-level tiered payment plan for the WWE Network, which I mentioned earlier. Samoa Joe's debut on the main roster. When is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? Well, according to Ringside News, when Samoa Joe makes his main roster debut, it will apparently be in a feud with Braun Strowman. It's actually true because Braun Strowman was basically salivating at the thought of competition, real competition. Well, doesn't get more real than Samoa Joe. Tried, tested, and true. There's no word as to when that debut could actually occur, but apparently I'm hearing rumors it could be sooner rather than later. That does it for this edition of A View from the Top. Hope you enjoyed tuning in, and tune in next week where we have a whole new edition of news, rumors, and everything involved with the WWE. If you want to follow me along, at Chris Toplack on Twitter.